In this episode, as usual, James does absolutely nothing. So James does actually do things in this video and did a tinker on his car and all that. He's just not here right now because he's in isolation, unfortunately. So yeah, not here with me at the moment. But pretty much with his 180SX, the alternator gave way, which meant he needed to replace it rather than just going for another OEM one. He's decided to upgrade it while he's at it because we're already in there under the car doing things. You might as well just make it better, right? So a common upgrade with the SRs in terms of the alternator is an LS alternator, and all you really need is just get an adapter kit which just adapts the mounting of the alternator for that LS alternator onto the SR. So James has gone and gotten one of those, and pretty much you chuck that on, you plug it in. The plugs are the same plug, so really it's quite simple. Plug and play, bolt on, whatever you want to call it. So in this episode, we're going to do that. Now, before we get into it, in the engine bay filming, it might get quite confusing on what we're actually doing. It was really hard to film in all those little bits and when we're doing things. But pretty much it's quite straightforward. It's just quite fiddly because there's not much room to work with. But yeah, we'll get on to ripping the alternator out and yeah, upgrading it.
Alright, so for the alternator, we don't actually have to take all of the belts off, which is good. All we have to do is loosen up the tensioner, which you can't really see, but it's just up here, and then just take the bracket off, which will loosen the alternator, and we'll be able to fandangle it out of there. Alright, so it's pretty easy to see which one is the old one and which one is the new one. You can tell that at some point this had a really hectic valve cover leak or some kind of oil leak, and it's just caked this in a ton of oil. Pulley, pretty good. Yeah, pretty much the same. So this is the LS alternator. It is quite a larger alternator. Amazingly though, if I flip it around, the plug is exactly the same. So this is a direct swap. You just need a bracket to mount the alternator, because as you can probably tell from the top, this one is across the top, whereas this one is along the bottom. So yeah, now all we got to do is pop in the bracket to now make the LS1 alternator fit, and then we'll pop in the LS alternator, and fingers crossed we've got enough power and everything to power all of the thermofans and everything else that's going to be going through this weapon. Alright, so as you can see, the alternator is finally in. You can probably also see that it's now nighttime. That did fight us a little bit. It's honestly just very fiddly. Now, we thought that these belts would be the same length because the pulley is actually smaller, but as you can see, it's very snug. So the kit did come with another belt, so it's probably going to be that belt is a little bit longer. So we're just going to take off the power steering belt, all the accessories, and the AC condenser belts. And so we can take that old belt off, put the new one on, and we should have a working car. So the battery in this car, probably with a good charge, could be brought back to life, but I don't know how old the battery is or the condition of it. So just so I know, peace of mind, I've gone ahead and bought a brand new battery. And now with the alternator in, giving it as much juice as it needs, we shouldn't be having any more battery problems with the 180. So I'll take the old one out, pop this one in, and hopefully we have a fully working 180.
So the alternator is finally in, and surprisingly it was actually quite difficult. I did think it was going to be a bit easier than it was. It just turned out to be very fiddly. So there's a lot of things where James had to be, putting a bolt through on the top, and where the nut goes, you can only get it from underneath the car, cells underneath the car. And yeah, it was a bit of a mission, but it's finally in there and all sorted and working great. I hope from the footage you can see what we're doing. I hope it's not too hard to follow, just because it was really hard to film. It's really tight in there, so while we got their arms in there and trying to film, it was just, turned out to be a bit difficult. If you're doing this yourself and you've got any questions, feel free to put them in the comments below, and we'll more than happily answer any of the questions you have for it. But pretty much, yeah, it's in, it's working. He can go driving again, which is great, because I've been sick of driving him around everywhere. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already. We do a bunch of stuff. We got the Lemon to Lambo challenge, if you don't know that already, where we're going from pretty much a lemon to a Lamborghini, just flipping cars, going to the auction. It's heaps of fun. Check it out if you're into that. We've also got meets, so if you're in the Brisbane to Gold Coast region in Australia, we hold monthly meets and cruises, so you should come along to one of those if you're in the area. I'll put the link below just to our Facebook page, and we'll chuck all the events up there. But yeah, hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time.